So then, within only a short space of time, I got pregnant with baby number 2. And I'd never been told when I was pregnant with, or just after I'd had my first son, that I would ever get pre-eclampsia again. It was never something that was ever brought up. And it was only when I went for my first midwife visit with my second pregnancy, and we were going over my previous history, that she said that I would then get it with this pregnancy, which worried me a little bit. But knowing how far I'd got with the first one and how everything went and how healthy he was, I was like, well, I'll be fine. We'll get, round about there again, and baby will be healthy and everything will be fine. So the first part of my pregnancy was really good. Again, no morning sickness, no tiredness, just a really nice, healthy pregnancy. And we found out at our 20-week scan that we were having another little boy. And again, at that point, still everything fine, no symptoms, no nothing. And then I think it was about 24 weeks pregnant, something around about there, that I'd gone for, I think it was a visit at the hospital. I was under hospital care for a lot of it because of my previous history. They tend to keep you more under hospital care than midwife care, because they have scans and everything there at their disposal to use as and when they need. So I'd gone for a routine checkup and my blood pressure was raised. I had the protein in my urine, and that was the start of things quickly happening. I then had to go for weekly appointments, and every week I was having scans, and they noticed that as the weeks went on that he wasn't growing how he should be growing, and that he was on the small side. And that was a little bit worrying, but I'm thinking, I can still probably get, to 37, 38 weeks, maybe more, and he'll have grown. So I didn't panic too much at this point. My blood pressure did keep rising. I was getting headaches at this point, and I was getting really bad heartburn that didn't matter what I was given, I just couldn't get rid of. So they then decided, I think I was about 32 plus some weeks at this point, and they decided that they wanted me to do an at-home 48-hour urine supply. And I had an appointment for the Monday afternoon, and at that point I would have then have been 33 plus, maybe just 33 weeks, something like that. So I did the collection and I went back to the hospital on the Monday, and it's quite usual, my mum come with me. So we went to the appointment, and I was put in this little kind of like a waiting room type area, and I was put on a blood pressure machine, and that was monitored, and the sample was sent off for analysis, and they come back in after about half an hour or something and said that basically it was decided that with the way that my blood pressure was going, with the symptoms I had and the amount of protein that was in my urine, that I would not be allowed to come out of hospital until I'd had this baby. So I stayed in hospital, and I was in for about a week. After about a week, they decided that everything they were trying, the medication they were trying, and everything just wasn't working, and that the best thing to do at 34 weeks, 6 weeks premature, was to just have this baby. So they induced me at 9 o'clock in the morning, and my partner was there. And they decided after about 7 hours it was best to go to have an emergency section. The baby was in distress. He weren't happy that we were suddenly bringing on the labour, and they just needed to get him out. So I was taken down to theatre, given the spinal, and at 5:30 in the evening, my £3 13-ounce little boy was born. I saw him for about 2 seconds, and then he was taken straight up to NICU. I was then obviously stitched up, cleaned up, taken back to my room. I wasn't able to go and see him with still being numb until the following day, but my partner was taken up to see him and was given some photos that he could bring back down to show me. And I think my partner had been back down for about half an hour, something like that, and the consultant come down and told us that he'd stopped breathing and that they'd had to put him on a ventilator, and they'd also found an infection that they were having to fight off with antibiotics. So then they'd had to put a feeding tube down his nose so that he was able to be fed. So I was finally able to go up the following morning to see him. I was wheeled up before taken to maternity ward, and it was quite heartbreaking to see my very poorly, very tiny little boy in this incubator, hooked up to all these wires and tubes and monitors and everything else. So then he stayed in the incubator for about a week, and every day he was getting stronger and stronger. He did get a couple more infections, but he fought them off. And after about 5 days, I was able to finally hold him. He was still hooked up to the leads, but he weren't on a ventilator anymore. After a week of being in an incubator, he was finally able to go into a cot, where he was still under a monitor, but it weren't as many wires and things like that. It was just one monitor to just monitor his oxygen levels. And he did really well very quickly in that room, and he very, very quickly progressed to the third room, which was basically the room where they then get him ready for coming home. And he was only in that room for another week when we were finally able to bring him home. And he was about £5 roughly by the time we were bringing him home. So he'd put on a good amount of weight in the 3 weeks that he was in. And he was sent home with some iron medication that we put into his bottles and some vitamins that we put into his bottle to obviously build him up. But very, very quickly he became a lot bigger, a lot stronger, a lot healthier. And he's now nearly 10. It'll be 10 this year. And to look at him, you just wouldn't even know he was ever premature. We went through a lot at that point, but we'd come through it, and it was such a reward at the end to have this beautiful little boy.